Oh, hello. Probably like many of you, I am preparing for quarantine, just using my Febreze all over the place to keep myself and my family safe. But like probably many of you, you've been already cooped up for a couple days, and this is probably going to last for a little bit here. I wanted to talk to us today about how Christians should respond in such a time as this. For many of us, this is brand new. Things like this, of course, have happened in history. There's been various plagues, pestilence, suffering happens all the time, and in some other places, it's a lot more regular than it is for us here in the United States. But there's one thing that I've been actually seeing quite a lot, and it's just kind of disheartening to see the way that Christians are responding. Some are immediately leaping to end of the world scenarios. And sure, the pale horse does bring with him pestilence and plagues and sickness and all that sort of thing. But there's no reason to jump to that conclusion, because many of these things have come and gone before. And the bigger question for us is, how are we going to witness? How are we going to stand? How are we going to be faithful in such a time? And I'll tell you one way that we don't do this is buying up all the toilet paper, hoarding all of the hand sanitizer. Maybe some of you saw the story of the guy that was hoarding. He had over 17,000 bottles of hand sanitizer, and he was hoping to make a profit by selling them to other people. Don't do that. That's not only extremely selfish, but it's borderline evil to profit off of the misery of other people. So don't do that by any means. There's panic and crippling fear should be a lot further down the list of tools for the Christian, and certainly so at the expense of abusing your common man. Many of us admire Mother Teresa, and rightly so. She put herself in harm's way for others when they were going through real struggles and pain. And I often wonder, especially for Americans, if we're so caught up in our comforts and just our cushiony life, that the last thing on our mind is what I would do for another person. The last thing on my mind is how I would help someone else. That is probably one of the worst testimonies that you or I could possibly have. And I pray that this is something that we consider, because one of the most important things that we do is to be a testimony to Jesus Christ. And our faith in Him should be what is defining us. And if our faith doesn't define us in times of trouble, then what really is it besides something that we just say that we believe? It's one thing to believe Jesus will help us get a space in a parking garage. It's quite another to believe that He will help you make it through a storm, even if you are running low on toilet paper. But casting our neighbors to the side in order to climb over someone else to get the last paper product at the store should not be anything that a Christian is involved in. Fear is not something that should be high on our list of immediate responses to this sort of thing. And I know that it's natural, and I think this is part of the reason why God so often says to His people, do not fear. Because we're fragile, we're weak, we're finite. We have a tendency to immediately assume the worst, fear the future, worry about consequences. So I just wanted to read a couple verses. Psalm 23. Psalm 23 is probably one that we all know. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for your rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Another one, Psalm 34:7. The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear Him, and He delivers them. Proverbs 29:25. The fear of man will be a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord will be kept safe. In fact, there's there's literally so many verses about not fearing and about God reassuring you and I in such a time as this. And like I said, there have been many times in history where people have suffered and have cried out, and it hasn't necessarily been the end of times. And we shouldn't jump to it's the end of times because it's affecting me. Think of World War I, think of World War II, think of the gulags, Think of just all of the different horrible things that have happened in history. I mean, our own swine flu, bird flu, mad cow disease, Y2K, SARS, MERS, all of these things that have come before and have gone. It's quite a selfish thing to assume that it's the end of days because it's putting me out, it's putting you out. We're in a situation where we're quarantined to our houses, and I can't go to Taco Bell, or you can probably still go through the drive-through. But you can't do all of the things that we normally want to do, which is probably staying at home and watching Netflix anyway. But just because something inconveniences us or scares us or worries us, doesn't mean we bring biblical prophecy into it. It's on God to do those things, and furthermore, it's on God to deliver and to lead His people in those times. But it's always on us to listen, to search Him out, and to be someone that isn't overcome with worry and fear as though we're unbelievers. One passage that came to mind, Matthew 10:29-31, says, "Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny, and not one of them will fall to the ground apart from your heavenly Father? But even the hairs on your head are numbered. Fear not, therefore you are more valuable than a sparrow." Birds were often used as sacrifices in the Old Testament when this was spoken. And they can be sold, and they can be traded, or they can live on. And God knows when they fall from the sky or when they don't. And He's saying, how much more important are you? Just because things look bad, God is not forgotten. So we're told to cast our fears upon Him because He cares for us. 1 Peter 5:7, Philippians 4:6 and 7. Be anxious about nothing, but in all things, through prayer and supplication, make your requests be made known to God. Pray like this. We should be on our knees praying and crying out to God in this season. But panic should not be something that defines our lives. Jesus very clearly told us that there is no greater love than he who lays down his life for his friends. And if we are so fearful that we're looking out for number one, that we're hoarding, that we won't even go around other people, and I know that there's wisdom in that right now, but just the idea, if our first thought is look out for number one, then there's no way that we're going to be able to minister to other people in this time. And that should always be a concern for the believer. So stay the course, hold on to your faith, and remember to shine in this time. There's always a time to testify, and what better time than in times of struggle to do just that. So look out for one another, take care of one another, pray for one another, and don't be afraid to help someone out who's in need. That's how we shine. Jesus said it's by our love for one another that our discipleship and our connection to Jesus is made clear. So take care of yourself. Use the Febreze everywhere. Stay clean, and we will see you again soon inside. So take care.